Here goes. What is up, Clayton? Can you hear me?
Hey, I can. Yeah,
Yo,
coming in loud and clear.
great.
How's the picture and sound looking on this side?
Looks pretty good. Yeah. I think everybody else can
Beautiful.
see. I'm going to turn up my volume just a little bit.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah. So I was just promoting you a little bit, but I'll
Sweet.
let you do a little bit more than that because
Okay.
like I was telling everybody just how much I love the shit out of you. I think
Oh,
you're a
thank
wonderful
you.
human being. Big inspiration for me. You have always been,
Mm.
and so what I'd love to hear from you is just give us the quick like 5,000 foot view of like what do who do you find yourself working
Mm.
with when like there's like real change and transformation going on.
Mm.
How do you position
Mm-hmm.
yourself? I know you've done like a lot of different things in a lot of different ways.
Mm. Okay, beautiful. And I also just saw Allison uh, drop a comment in there. I was just having coffee with her this morning, so wonderful to see her on. Told her all about you, talked you up as well.
Oh, nice,
Um,
great. What's up,
so
Allison?
Yeah, so I will. I'm going to start with just kind of who the evolution of maybe my marketing and kind of what I'm noticing that's happening in my life now. So I started off about 8 years ago as more of a relationship coach, working with people going through breakups and helping people navigate the devastating loss of a loved one. And what I found is that a breakup is one of the most powerful times in someone's life to be able to make a change because there's a tsunami of emotions. There's a brand new identity that is coming online. There's an old identity that we're putting to rest, and there's an opening. There's a swell for us to really ride, gain balance on, and create some really powerful changes in our life. So that was the doorway. That was the gateway in the beginning, and
So
all of what?
I just want to
Yeah.
say I was just reading this book, that how emotions are made, and it was saying how we actually like we outsource some of our like our inner resourcefulness, like the way that we manage our like literally like our energy levels and our hormones and things
Mm.
like that to a partner. And so when we have a breakup,
Yeah.
it actually like there's like literally a piece of yourself is now missing because you were like relating that way. So
Totally.
and that goes in
Totally.
right in line with that door that you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. And so there's an opportunity for us to retrain our nervous system, to
Yeah.
your point, to learn how to take our power back and begin to self-generate those emotions and those experiences that we have once been relying on our partner to, whether it's consciously or unconsciously. And in that process of this crack and this break and this space that's created, there's such an opportunity for us to author a new version of ourselves. And whether that is becoming better leaders, whether that is becoming better partners to ourselves, better allies in our own life, or better allies to the friends and the family that we live with. It's a beautiful time to do that. So I did that, and I still do that. There's a lot of passion I have around it. There's marketing material that's out there that people will find me for that. But I would say that within the last couple of years, things have been shifting. I've been working more with executives, more with folks that are leaders on teams, and they'll find me initially around relationship issues. And then what ends up happening again, it's a doorway into really helping them develop a more courageous relationship with self, a more connected relationship with their own awareness. They're bringing more presence into their life, less trigger, and ultimately helping them move in the direction and create what they want in this life
Yeah,
through
totally.
using NLP and a bunch of different coaching modalities.
Yeah, man, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, like I love this idea of it being like this gateway to like bigger transformation because
Yeah.
we are who we are in every situation in our lives, and it's like
Mm.
we want to make these we want to have this idea, this like separation that like, well, I just really need help like in my business here, or like I really just need help in my relationships, or I
Right.
really just need help in my fitness. But it's like, well,
Yeah.
yeah, but and the way that we show
Yeah.
up is like the way that we show up in everything. So
I love
that's really
that.
cool.
I
Dude,
love that.
I would love to have you wrap a little bit on NLP because it's a modality that I don't use a ton in my own work. I think about it a little bit like adjacently, but I love NLP. I love the
Mm.
kind of work that it is, and I've
Hmm.
really loved the experience of NLP with you personally. So
Yeah.
I'd
Thank
love
you.
if you could like explain a little bit about what NLP is, how you think about it, and how you think of it as like a tool for transformation and change.
Okay. Beautiful. Yeah. Great question. So NLP, for those that this is your first time hearing it, it's neuro-linguistic programming, and it is essentially, I'd say, the study and the modeling of peak communication. It was developed in the 1970s by a gentleman named John Grinder and Richard Bandler. One of them was a linguist and the other one was a computer coder. And their original interest in getting together was around machine learning and really beginning to model machine learning so that they could learn what they could from humans and start to apply it to machinery and the way that computers think. Yeah, and what ended up happening is they got so fascinated with how the human mind creates programs and creates reality that they decided to just put all their attention on that instead. And so with a linguist and a computer programmer, we can imagine that there's a certain lens that one is invited to look through as we interact with people, of kind of seeing that people have certain types of programs running inside their mind in their life that are creating a certain type of result. We have programs that we might be running around feeling hopeless, programs that we might be running around strategies of, creating ourselves as a champion or feeling like we can get through anything. And I would say that in my work, it's about eliciting and uncovering the unconscious programs that we are creating that are keeping us maybe stuck or highly protected and therefore not moving forward, and gently, gracefully, and respectfully beginning to untangle those so that we can release the person to begin to move into a reality in which that's more desire that they're wanting to ultimately create. Yeah. That's a high level overview of it.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. And I love this idea of like the mind as a computer, or like what it means to combine like language and computer programming and the way that those two things kind of go together. Yeah. I am like, the piece of NLP that really fascinates me is the way that we use our language like to create the map of our reality. Yes. And so the way that you can like tune into people's maps of reality by listening to the words that they use. And, and I just think that that's like this really cool, like it's almost, it feels like it's this sort of like magical hack that exists that you can like listen to the words that somebody says and like understand that they're creating, because we're not describing reality. Like we don't have any access to reality. And I think this is like something that's so core and fundamental to understanding any kind of transformation, is like, if you can separate yourself from the idea that you have any access to what is actually happening in reality and just understand that you're really doing your best to filter it and describe it. Our brains are like working at top speed to make things simple so that we can understand them. Then you can start to like, things don't have inherent meaning, things no longer like, that thing doesn't make me do anything. That thing, that thing is, I don't even know what that thing is like out there. It's just my relationship to it. And so then I can change my relationship to it by changing the language. And I just think that is like super powerful technology.
So well put, dude. So well put. And I really love I just want to underscore and underline, because you said it in passing, and I think it's so potent, which is that our language isn't describing. Our language is quite literally, in many ways, creating how something occurs to us. And there's such a domino effect that occurs when we live into that idea that how we speak about something is how we experience it. Because how I speak about a person is how I end up experiencing them. How I speak about my work, how I speak about my team, how I speak about my partner will determine the feelings that come up in me, and it will also determine the things that I continually see, because there's confirmation bias. So, another point that I want to make is we could just imagine for a moment that we're not actually, just to kind of double back on what you said here, we're not actually interfacing with the real thing out there. We're interfacing with a story, a narrative that we are consciously and unconsciously creating about who we think that person is. And so therefore, everybody is our creation. And if it's our creation, then we have our hands on the levers to be able to modify that narrative so that we can start to experience the states that we want when we're in the presence of that person or in the presence of that thing.
Yeah, dude, totally. Yeah. It's so awesome. And I mean, it's like crazy. This isn't a trivial thing. Like, it can sometimes sound a little woo-woo, I think, to people, like, because like you want to believe in science or whatever, but this isn't woo-woo. This is based on like hard neuroscience. And when you look at like the way that all of our cognitive biases work and the errors that we make, and I mean, look, our brains are I'll talk about this a lot, but our brains are doing their best to organize what is essentially chaos around us,
So good. Yep.
And so we're just like trying to organize it and make it into something that's useful for us. But we don't know that a lot gets lost in translation, but that's both a good thing and a bad thing, because the thing is, we can actually change the way that we're translating words and then have like huge impacts on our lives. So that's
Listen to you, man. You say that you don't know anything about NLP. You know a ton about NLP.
I don't use a lot of the techniques though, but actually that's
Yeah.
a good segue, because I actually wanted to
Yeah.
talk. Maybe this might be helpful for people too. So walk us through what are some of the things that you do with actually. No, that's good. We'll go with the segue. So what are some things that you actually do with people? Like what would like an NLP, how would you use NLP in a practical way with somebody? Like what's something that you would do? Because I know that you did a lot of stuff with NLP and Marin out in California.
I did, yeah.
And I know that they have a lot of like concrete tools. So you want to tell us about some of those?
I will, yeah. So there's three things that come to mind, and I'll keep it on they're fundamental, and they're so damn potent too. So one of the key pieces is understanding this idea and this kind of foundation of rapport, building rapport with somebody. And so I just want to make, if people have probably heard that of the term rapport. You want to have rapport with somebody in a selling situation. You want to have rapport with somebody in a coaching scenario. But rapport has nothing to do with being liked. Rapport is actually a way of being with another person in which their unconscious mind, the animal part of their brain, not their prefrontal cortex, but their emotional and reptilian part of their brain, actually feel like they are among like kind, right? So their nervous system actually begins to relax in your presence. And what ends up happening is as their nervous system relaxes in your presence, they start to become more resourceful interfacing with you. More of their brain starts to go online because there's not some part deep in the brainstem that's thinking, okay, this person's a threat, right? So it makes coaching so much more effective when the person's nervous system can relax in my presence, and I can be with them in a way that allows us both to expand our thinking. Both
because it feels safe, is what you're saying.
Feels safe, exactly. We feel safe in their presence. So a couple of ways that I will build rapport with people is I will kind of tune into the energy in which they're dialoguing with me. And I'll match tone with them. I'll match the same kind of tone that they have in terms of how they're speaking. I'll match the cadence and the tempo. If they are taking a deep breath, I will be right there with them too, kind of feeling what they're feeling, taking a deep breath. I will also match body language as well if I'm working with them on video. Like I don't want to be super close to the camera versus like too far away from the camera. I'll try to match myself up so that we are.
Is that why you're that far away from the camera right now, man?
Precisely why I'm this far away from the camera. I want you to feel safe in my presence, man.
All right, that's good. That's good.
As always. Yeah. And I'm not doing this from a standpoint of where I'm like mocking you or I'm parodying you necessarily. I'm doing this from a standpoint of really wanting and having a deep desire to step into your world and feel what it's like to be you, right? And so what I'll also do is as I'm asking questions, I might repeat back to you what I'm hearing and mark out certain key words, because that also communicates to your unconscious mind that I'm here with you and that I'm listening and that I'm really getting your world, and I'll say them and I'll feel what you might be feeling as well.
Totally.
So that's one way. On that
note, actually, I'm going to say, Gig Rose, we will answer your question in just a second, because I am here with you, feeling what you're saying, and we'll be right with that.
Uh-oh, I didn't see that question.
Oh, yeah, we got to get there in just a second, but that's okay. Go ahead. Finish what you thought.
Yeah, so also essentially using similar language as well. Like if someone gives me an experience that they're having, I'm not going to then immediately come back with my own interpretation of what they said. I might quite literally do my best to reconstruct the sentence in a very similar way back to them so that they really feel like I'm getting them on an unconscious level. And then from there.
And in some way, that's actually going to help you get them on an unconscious level.
Yes.
Exactly, right? Because you're going to be stepping into their reality by using their language. It's like what we were just saying. Like,
yeah, because if the words are the access point.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
So those are just a couple tips on how I might build rapport and be with somebody that actually allows the conversation to have much more like, it has much more juice in it and a container of safety. That would be like step one.
Cool. It's like rapport. So setting a framework for where we have like a shared reality together is almost a way of saying.
Yes.
Cool. So let's talk about this, because I think it's actually a pretty interesting question what Gig Rose asked. So I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I missed something that what you're saying, but like it's this idea, what we were talking about, where you're kind of creating a construction of each other, right? Where, you know, like as I'm I'm relating to you, I'm creating you in a very real way in my brain. And I think that Gig Rose's question was that like, am I also then a creation, just a creation in your reality, or like how does that work, and like what's going on there, you know?
Yeah.
Hi y'all, hi the newcomers, howdy.
Yeah. And I don't want to speak necessarily in truth. I want to speak in kind of like as an idea that might be resourceful and useful for us to step into, because it gives us more agency. I'm hearing what Gig Rose is asking is it the same for the other person? Am I also maybe a creation for them?
Yeah,
And
and
I
can
would
you give
say,
us a thumbs up if that's what you're asking, Gig Rose? We'll just assume for now, and so
I'm going to say, yeah.
yeah.
So, and I'll just speak to that because I think even if it's not specifically a question, I think it's a great idea to look at. And I
Go.
think this is where it's really fascinating because it falls right in line with this idea of projection. That if somebody is giving you feedback, if somebody is actually coming in and judging you, that most likely this is telling, more revealing about them than it is about you, because again, they are interfacing with their idea of who they think you are, which is constructed based on their past experiences, based on all of the shortcuts that they're making about who they think you are and what you represent to them. So that's not to say that their feedback is not useful, because there might be something that they are naming that is important for you to kind of recognize and check in with yourself and say, okay, well, maybe this is true. Maybe there is something that where I can modify and become more conscious or step up my behavior in a certain way. But I would say, yes, everybody is interacting with a story of who they think the other person is. That's not actually reality. And just to even take this internally, I'm also interacting and interfacing with a story about who I think I am on a regular basis. The idea that Clayton is simply an idea, Ben is simply an idea that we get when we see that we're just an idea. Like, we can't actually cut me open and find Clayton. We can't cut you open and find Ben. It's simply a narrative. And then that gives us so much power to begin to rewrite a different narrative when we really hold it in that regard.
Because I mean, this is just like, I mean, when you get this idea, this is a fucking mind blown explosion of your brain, right? Because you're not like, there's not some core way that you are or that you exist. Like, it really is just like kind of behavior. Now, we might have tendencies or whatever, and like genetics maybe plays a part in things, but we would never know where that line was. So like, you might as well pretend as though it didn't exist, because we have as much flexibility as we can create in our reality. And like, that's where this capacity for transformation comes from. Another way of thinking about this, I think, that like, to put it in sort of a metaphor is like, you and I might read the same book, right? Like a storybook, right? Yeah. And for you, it's like the greatest story that's ever been written. Like, it's worthy of praise. It should be the top of the New York Times bestseller list, et cetera, et cetera. And for me, it might like be a total piece of trash, and I think it's awful, right?
Yeah.
And that has nothing to do with the book. The book, it's the same words that both of us are reading, right? But the way that you interpret those words and like connect with them in your reality, and the way that I interpret them and connect them in my reality, is a completely different experience based on everything that we bring with us and kind of the stories that we're telling about the way that the world works, right? And so this is what we mean, Gig Rose, like, when it's like, yes, I am a creation in your reality, because it's like, I'm the book, right? For Clayton, I show up, I'm one way, I'm one experience, but for other people, like, they might not like me, they might not enjoy me, and I'm assuming that you like me and enjoy me, Clayton, but but for other people, they might not, right? Because that's got nothing to do with what's written on the book, but mostly what's written in the person who is reading the book, right? And so, yes, you're interpreting everybody else in your reality, and also they're interpreting you, and we don't actually have direct access to the core essence of people. Like Clayton was just saying, like, if you cut me open, there is no Ben inside somewhere, right? We're just interfacing with the kind of our experiences. We're literally, I mean, there's a lot of neuroscience on this, that we're actually creating the experience that we have around us based on really its usefulness to us as we interpret it, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, beautiful. And just to like put another piece to that, which I think, you know, part of me was listening to this, like, and why is this useful? Well, it's like useful because this is the first step in moving into the territory of being a creator rather than feeling like a victim.
Mm.
right? It helps us make that maneuver into a place of like, wait a second, okay, how am I collaborating, consenting to, allowing, creating this experience that I'm having that's negative? Because if it's all happening out there and none of it's my creation, then
Yes.
suddenly I'm in this paradigm that life is happening to me,
Yeah.
right? Rather than life is happening by me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's so beautiful. I mean, that's like it's like stepping into the driver's seat rather than just
Yeah.
being in the passenger seat for life, you know? Like you
Yes.
actually like you always have been in the driver's seat, just been like pretending that you're not, kind of
Mm.
sitting over in the in the passenger seat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Beautiful.
yes, we do have infinite realities. Yeah, absolutely. Like 100%. And you know
Yeah.
this because actually even in the physical world we have infinite realities because you like we tell this story that like, oh, I got to do these things and I got to do these things, but actually you don't have to. As long as you're willing to accept whatever the consequences are of making another choice, you don't have to do anything like, oh, I got to get up and go to work, like, oh, it's a
Mm.
burden and all this stuff. But actually that's none of that's true. You could just literally
Mm.
walk away right
Mm-hmm.
now. You literally have infinite realities. We run in these patterns, but actually you can choose to walk somewhere else and be in an entirely new universe. Like
Mm.
if I like right now I'm in this room having this conversation, but I could just as easily be in a coffee shop and I would be in a whole new world, right? I could just as easily be having a conversation with another person right now, and then I'd be in an entirely different universe, and you all would be in an entirely different universe, and all based
Mm.
on the choices that we made for our realities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have, so I wanted to say this other piece that I think is, it kind of goes into this other technique that NLP uses that is incredibly useful, I found in my own coaching practice. And I'm wondering if I should segue into that.
Do it.
Does that make
Use
sense? Okay,
segue, man.
cool. So another powerful piece that can build on this is so if we come from this idea, this presupposition that we're creating people, what this also means is that we can get access to information about that person's perspective if we step into their experience. So there is an exercise or a process sometimes I lead people through, which is called perceptual positions, where you might literally go back in time inside of your mind and imagine a scenario in which you were triggered. This could be something that is recent. This could be all the way back in time to in childhood. And I might actually have the subject, the client, inside of their head, step into the different positions of the people that were in the room during the time when some event occurred. So if I'm working with somebody who's maybe has a difficult time, like I had a woman who was having a difficult time with her boss, and there was an event that happened, and I had her go back to that moment in time where she was feeling a certain trigger that was occurring inside of her system, and we started to elicit the different types of beliefs and interpretations she was having about her boss in that specific scenario, and also the beliefs and the accusations she was having about herself in that situation that were creating this experience of feeling disempowered, feeling resentful, feeling angry.
Mhm.
And then pulling out of that, I had her then step into her boss's perspective and actually associate fully into her boss, put her.
And what you're saying is you mean you had her like imagine that she was her boss in the memory?
Yeah, so from the outside, there's a third person perspective. So here's her and here's her boss, and then here's her witnessing her and her boss having a conversation
Mm-hmm.
from a third party perspective. And I had her associate into her so she could feel what she felt at the time.
Mm-hmm.
What's the dialogue? What are the pictures and sounds? What are the things you're making it mean? And then I
Mm-hmm.
had her pull back out into the observer perspective. Okay, now what are you noticing here, looking at these two interact? And now let's go ahead and have you step into the boss's position. Allow your heart to match up with your boss's heart. Feel into your boss's lungs, right? Breathe through her system for a moment. What kind of dialogue is going on through her head? What is she feeling underneath this? Where are those emotions lying? So now what's happening here is you're alternating through these perspectives of self, other, and observer, and you're gathering a more holistic perspective of what actually might be happening in that specific scenario. So that when you go back and you step into the self position, you've suddenly got a brand new updated version of, whoa, I was so in my own thing, making this mean something about me, and I didn't know that my boss was stressed out, and she was feeling threatened, and she had this going on. And rather than me having to tell you and say, oh, your boss is probably feeling just stressed out in this moment, which could be powerful, I'm setting up a structure in which she can go find these things out for herself, come to her own conclusion about it, and then she owns it.
Dude, that is so cool. And like this one line that you said in there, have her heart match up with her boss's heart. Like, it's
Mm,
like, what? What? Like, just to even to connect the dot that we have that resource available to us,
yeah.
even to just like pause and remember that you can actually like step into the reality of someone else as best you can construct it, right?
Right.
But like that as a resource is crazy. Yeah, we will totally, the live will be saved, and we will connect it for sure.
We got you, Gig Rose. We got you.
Yeah, we got it. But yeah, but that's like an amazing resource, an access point to a resource that is like so powerful. I mean, if you can do this in any situation, I mean, like, look, I get sometimes a little sad when I like look at like the political landscape, for instance, and the way that like everything's so polarized and people are like fighting, and it's like, you know, the quality of the conversations could be so much improved by just doing this. Like, yeah, you might not agree with them, you might not like what they have to say, but just for a moment, actually like pretend, not like for the sake of argument, like, not like, oh yeah, no, I get it, but like actually like step into the heart place of where the other person is coming from and try to like understand what in the highest and best intent of that person, like what, like
Yes.
that person doesn't think that they're a monster, that person doesn't think that they're evil or that they are wrong or any of these things, you know, like what do they believe about themselves and what does that actually mean? And so when you can like step into that position and just pretend for a minute, just pretend that you didn't hate that person, that you actually like loved them as best they can love themselves, like from that position, like what happens to the quality of the conversation and what happens to your experience in the world?
Totally. And I think what it cracks open is for us to suddenly have compassion, right? Because even if there is malicious things being said by another person, healthy, happy people don't say malicious things to people.
Yeah.
So if we can feel behind that and we can suddenly feel the stress or the wound or the threat that they must be going through, it allows us to step outside and say, oh, this is not actually about me. Right? This is not about me. This is something going on with them. This is an expression of their own inner conflict that's now being externalized into the relationships outside of them. And having a felt experience of that is incredibly powerful.
Incredibly powerful.
It allows us to detach. It allows us to actually relinquish our own accusations about ourselves and kind of just stop looking at them through our own insecurities and start looking at the situation from an outside perspective and not be so reactive. And when we're not so reactive, we're not in our critter brain, we're not in our fight or flight system, which then allows us to communicate clearly. It allows us to show up and be much more resourceful in our communication, much more creative, and ultimately keep our leadership online.
Right. I mean, it actually helps us to be less affected by what's happening in the world too, because we put, again, by putting ourselves in the driver's seat and realizing that like everybody's just doing their own thing to the best of their ability, right? Like then I can just be in a place of kind of detached sort of awareness of these things and not have to take it so personally when somebody else does things, because it literally isn't about me at all, which is a crazy thing. Like it's never, no, even if somebody's saying you are blah 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 blah, like it's never about you, because they're only like reading one part of the story of you, and you have like this deep inner world that they can't possibly have access to, and so like a whole new place. Okay, I want to talk about this thing. Are you good on time for a second? Because I want to ask you like one more. Okay, I want to ask you one more like kind of question to have you riff on it before we move off. So, what do you think it takes, in your opinion, for like a client or a person who's doing transformational work or a person who's like wanting to change something about their reality? What qualities do you think people would be really well served to cultivate in themselves, or to like create an awareness of and grow? Like what characteristics make for easier transformation in our lives?
Okay, beautiful. Yeah. From my experience, having worked with many clients at this point and working with clients who were not ready for the coaching versus experiencing the ones that were, the common traits for the people that are on that precipice where they're ready to make the leap and truly change are the ones that have a certain amount of courage that they're bringing to their lives and the conversation. They might be in a bit of fear, and that's okay. But there's a certain courage that they believe that they're ready to step into in order to shift something. Because change feels dangerous to our nervous system. And it's why we repeat the past, even if the past is one where we are continually creating scenarios where maybe we feel victimized, or maybe we feel like we've been abused in some type of way. That actually feels safer to our nervous system, because part of us knows that we can survive it because we have been surviving it. But the new reality of stepping into and creating an experience in which maybe we're open and transparent and loving, it feels very vulnerable. It feels very scary to our nervous system because we don't have any history that lets us know that our nervous systems can actually survive that. So it really takes a willingness and a courage to step into the unknown.
Oof.
Okay.
Totally. That's great. Like I just had this image of like merging onto an interstate. You know, like you're driving in and you're safe. You've been on these like side streets or whatever. Now you're moving into this place where things are like going at like literally 4 times the speed, and you're like trying to get up to speed to merge, and you're like checking and you're looking, you know what I mean? And like everything's like so high pressure in that moment of merging.
Yeah.
Like there's this like moment of transition vulnerability and like willingness that you have to be like tuned in and like paying attention, and then like, oh, sorry.
Oh,
Somebody
I'm
called
back.
me.
Oh, no worries. I heard you say you got to be tuned in.
You got to just be tuned in and paying attention and willing to embrace this new reality in order to get where you're going. And I just like,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
A wonderful metaphor. I love it. I was getting the visceral feeling of that back when I remember being 16 driving and just like, oh my God, am I going to be, how do human beings do this?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Totally, man.
Oh my God. Okay. So the next thing that I would say is, and I'm going to just kind of link some of these together too. It's like, there's a willingness to dance with uncertainty in a different way. Because really change is about developing a relationship with uncertainty, where we, instead of being shut down and grasping onto the certain, we're actually willing to open up into this, beyond this black veil of change, and kind of surrender to it, and just start to trust that life and our unconscious minds have a plan for us. Like there's a trust, and a dance with uncertainty that is required.
Dude, that's so good. There's this the word confidence. I love this. Like there's like clues hidden in our language, but the word confidence literally means with faith.
Ooh,
Confidenza. Right. So like, and we think about like having confidence in other people or in other things, but like, but actually it always, I think, comes down to confidence in ourselves, like with faith in ourselves, that we'll be able to handle whatever the thing is that shows up. And that's like what that willingness to step into uncertainty. It's like, can I handle no matter what happens on the other side of this? Like I lose a leg, I like lose everything that I've ever had. I like, and then, that's not the end of the story. You know what I mean? And then I'll be there. And so am I willing to be in whatever position it takes for me to move through this? And I think that's great.
Beautifully said, man. Yeah. And so there's like a resilience that comes with that too. And also a stepping into a bit of anti-fragility in the sense of that anything that life throws at me and whatever changes begin to occur, it's all in service of my growth. And that all trials and tribulations and all the things that I'm going to go through are actually going to make me more loving, crack me more open, have me source and generate more of my power to live in a trusting way where I'm surrendered and connected and open.
Dude, love that. And I think of that in terms of acceptance, or like a willingness. It's almost like willingness plus acceptance equals embracing, and then you get to like embrace this whatever. I mean, embrace reality.
Yeah, excellent. I love the word embrace. That's great. Yeah, embrace. It's like we're embracing ourselves, we're embracing life, we're learning to embrace we're learning to embrace the situations that are causing us pain, and we're able to say, yeah, pain's not bad. Pain is the access way to growth and connection, right? Like pain is we're alive, right? I mean, how many ways do we numb ourselves out and disconnect so we can avoid feeling pain? And in the maneuver of that, we also then avoid engaging with life, right? That's the cost of not saying yes to pain.
Yeah, you can't cut yourself off from one kind of feeling without
Right.
cutting yourself off from all kinds of feelings.
Well said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome, dude. This has been such a good conversation, Clayton. As
Yeah.
always, I know I can.
Thank you for bringing me on, man. And
Yeah, dude.
your enthusiasm and just articulation around some of the things I was throwing out was quite impressive. And it was just, I hope you have me back on, and I'll have you on my channel. It'll be great.
Absolutely, man. I
Yeah.
love talking to you. So before we go, let people know where can we find you? Where can we encounter you? How would you like for people to, if people love what you're saying, which they obviously do and should, where can they find you?
So you can go to my Instagram, and I don't know if that's like linked to this, Clayton
Well,
Olson
we'll
Coaching.
be able to when we so after this goes offline, I'll like save it, and then it'll live in my IGTV, and I'll link it. I'll tag you in it, and you'll all be in there. So.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, and I got a guide. It's called The 5 Secrets to Create an Extraordinary Relationship. It's something I made after 8 years of being in the relationship space and seeing the patterns, the deeper architecture of what really allows one to come into relationship with someone or something in a powerful, life-giving way. Check it out. 5 Secrets to Create a Rock Solid Relationship. 5 Secrets to Create an Extraordinary Relationship. It's on my website, ClaytonOlsonCoaching.com.
Dope. And for those of you like listening, seriously, like this guy's really good. Like the stuff that he comes up with and the ways that he shows up in relationship and in rapport. Like, I mean, Clayton, you are like seriously a master. You're like a beautiful coach. You're so good at tuning into what is going on for people. And it's just like, it's reflected in every moment of every conversation that I've ever had with you. And I appreciate the shit out of you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Thank you for creating me that way, man.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all totally my creation of you.
That is your creation, man. Own that. Yeah, that's so much about you, brother.
Yeah.
It really does. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. We really appreciate you. Thanks for showing up and being engaged. And Clayton, thank you so much for having the conversation with me. You rock so much.
You got it, man.
Later, buddy.
See ya.
Peace.